My work with students over the past 2.5 decades has shown me that students respond wonderfully to Emerson's exhortation that, that they experience a kind of reverence and a sense of wonder at life's mysteries. It's one of the reasons that I always start with nature, which is one of his more difficult works, I think. But we read together the passage where he says, "The stars awaken a certain reverence." And those passages are intended for city dwellers, for commuters, people who have been in what he calls a kind of noxious environment, coming out into nature and experiencing this kind of wonder. And I think that as a teacher, it's my job to give students those moments in the classroom so that they can go out and kind of combat the rest of their lives. I think that one of the ways I do this is by thinking about time in the classroom. Time, so much of education now is just this overloading of information so that students are just they read, kind of huge morasses of information, and they're constantly surrounded by it. And I think it's much better to give them texts that have depth and profundity, and that they are able to revere in that sense. I think it's interesting because on the one hand, they share their experiences together of a sense of reverence outside the classroom. It builds wonderful community within the classroom to have these texts brought to life for them. And then they learn to, kind of experience reading itself as an activity that awakens hope. And I think that Emerson's The American Scholar is a wonderful essay to assign students because it teaches them the importance of their work as scholars, the value of their work as scholars, the dignity. And he says that we should be cheered by the true dignity of our work as what he calls a ministry. I mean, that it actually has this fundamental importance to the spiritual well-being of the world. So I think that in the context of my teaching, that having time in the classroom for students to read these texts without rushing on to the next one is a very important kind of practice. Knowing who and what to assign. In these days, I tend to choose writers who are more optimistic, and so I'll teach the late Eliot as opposed to the early Eliot. And I also think that time spent outside the classroom where you can actually talk with students about their writing in particular. I think that in today's world, with all the databases, students feel like they're grappling with, this huge burden of everything that's been thought and said in the world, and they can't find their voice. Academic writing is very, very burdensome. They're really good at all kinds of other writing, texting, emails, and they're very creative. But as soon as you get them to write an expository essay, they all clamp up because of the burden of the scholarship. And so in that sense, I think time there too, where I don't have to rush off to another meeting and have time to spend with them, is very important.